Thank you so much, Josh. And it's my practice to always begin my portions of these sits just by offering gratitude to you and to all the folks at IJS for offering us this very special place to come together over time and space and just to be together. So I wanted just to start for those of us who didn't have a chance, if there's anyone who didn't have a chance to count the Omer and wants to engage in that practice today, to begin with that. And I'm so sorry. First, let me offer thanks again to Rachel. And Rachel, I misguided you because I do want to start with counting the Omer. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that source sheet just for a moment so that we can do that together, that would be wonderful if you have that available. And
Yes,
if not, I can.
let me just
Great.
pull that up really quick.
Thank you. And that's on me. It's so wonderful to be with you all and to spend this time together. In a moment after we count the Omer, I'm going to bring a teaching from the Sfat Emet on Parshat Emor, which is especially resonant during these days of the Omer. So we'll just begin with the Omer blessing, and you can join me in words of blessing. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Hayom Shisha v'esrim yom shehem shlosha shavuot v'chamisha yamim la'omer. And you'll see that it says Monday. I am aware that today's Tuesday. For our purposes, we'll count as if it's Monday until this evening, and then begin with the next day. So we can let that source sheet go for just a little while, and that'll be available at the end of the sit to anyone who wants to access any of the sources that I'm going to cite during our sit together. So just go ahead and settle in, bring some awareness to the body. I'm not going to ask you to close your eyes yet, but if you want to, of course, you're more than welcome to. Whatever posture opens you up to receiving some Torah, some teaching. So the Sfat Emet in this teaching that I want to share with us today begins with the opening phrase of the Parsha, Emor el HaKohanim ve'amarta alehem. Speak to the priests and say to them. And he notices this doubling here, Emor ve'amarta, speak and say. Really kind of the same thing. And as our Hasidic teachers often do, he hears in this doubling not redundancy, but depth. Repetition with reason. Two levels of connection. There's speech that comes to us from outside, and then there's speech that we receive that we can allow to reside deeply inside of us. There's Torah as something that we see as separate from ourselves, something that we can approach and study, something that we hear, something that we receive. And then there's Torah that enters the heart, Torah that changes the quality of our perception and changes the way in which we actually live. So the Sfat Emet brings a midrash about Bnei Yisrael, about the children of Israel in the days of King David. And it says that they could expound Torah in 49 facets of purity and 49 facets of impurity. So during this period of the Omer, this number is particularly calling to us. We hear 49 days. We hear 7 weeks of 7, 49 gates possibly, 49 movements, 49 ways of refining perception, 49 combinations of the midot, of the soul qualities. So I also want to be a little bit careful with this language here of purity and impurity, because it can sound pretty harsh to our ears, as if the world is divided very neatly into clean and unclean, good and bad, acceptable and unacceptable. And I really don't think that's what the Sfat Emet is getting at here. He's saying something more subtle, that what we call impurity is often a covering, a veil, a shell, or an outer layer that obscures the inner vitality. The world really just appears to us fragmented. What's available to us in our perception is just surface. The world appears to us sometimes through distractions, through fear, through judgment, and through habits of perception. And the work of our spiritual practice is not to despise the world, and it's not to renounce worldly things or our physicality. And it's also not to deny the surface that we see there that's available for us to perceive. It's just to learn to see through the surface toward the hidden chayut, toward the life force that exists underneath the surface of everything. The Sfat Emet reminds us that everything was created through the divine word, which means that every single thing, every living creature, every movement, every breath, every encounter has some divine utterance at its root. And that root is not always obvious to us. Sometimes the outer layer, the outer clothing of things is very noisy. So that can come in different forms. Our reactivity can be really noisy. I know for many of us, the news cycle is incredibly noisy. For those of us who deal with chronic pain, the body's discomfort can be really noisy. Other people's behavior and our judgment of other people's behavior can be really noisy. And fear is noisy. And even self-protection can be noisy. But underneath all of that, what this teaching tells us is that there's a hidden purity, a hidden light, a hidden point of life. And the practice is to remember that the outer layer, while it is true, it exists, we can touch, we can feel it, we can sense it, but it's not the whole truth. And this is where the Sfat Emet connects to the teaching of the Omer. And he says that the days of counting, this period of Sfirat HaOmer, help a person in that they are spiritually medicinal. So I love this phrase so much because it reminds me of Mary Poppins. Just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. So medicine doesn't always taste so good to us, right? So the medicinal days, while they are spiritually meaningful, they're not always easy and they're not magically peaceful, but they're days that offer a kind of medicine for our perception. On Passover, we're pulled out of Mitzrayim, we're pulled out of constriction, out of bondage, out of the physical world of bricks and mortar, but we do not immediately arrive at Sinai. We count. We count day by day, layer by layer, facet by facet, midah by midah, and we learn how to become available to revelation. that availability can't just reside in the intellect. It must be embodied, emotional, and relational in order to be true revelation. So, questions that we can ask ourselves during this time of receiving some spiritual medicine are: can I become a little less attached to the outer clothing of things? Can I notice the shell without mistaking it for the essence? Can I feel irritation, fear, impatience, grief, desire, and still ask, what life force is hidden under these things? What life force is residing under those emotions? And what holiness is trying to return to its source? So the Sfat Emet also brings the teaching from Pirkei Avot, which tells us the world is like an entrance hall before the world to come. Prepare yourself in the entrance hall so that you may enter the main hall. This is not a rejection of the physical world. It's just an invitation to relate to this physical world as a threshold. Everything here is an entrance. Our bodies can be an entrance. The breath can be an entrance. The ordinary room, even the difficulty. And our silence today will provide an entrance for us, and even the outer layers, as long as we don't stop there, can be an entrance. So the work is not to run away or escape the entrance hall. It's just to discover that the entrance hall has been beckoning us all along. And what looked ordinary is also a doorway. And he says that this is actually teshuvah, not necessarily as repentance, but as returning to the inner life force, the chayut within worldly things, and returning everything to its source. So for our sit today, we're going to practice in this way, not trying to force ourselves into some pure, quiet, or spiritual state. Instead, just being with whatever arises, whether it's sensation, thought, emotion, sound, resistance, boredom, or tenderness. Whatever is arising, just recognize it as the outer layer. And then perhaps gently ask, what is underneath this layer? So I'll invite you just to settle again into your sitting place. You can allow the eyes to gently close or to come to a soft focus. Feeling the body, the contact with whatever is beneath you. Noticing the foundation. Bringing balance into your sitting, both side to side and front to back. Noticing how the spine rises nobly from the sitting place, from that foundation, reaching all the way up through the crown of the head. Breathing in and breathing out. Firm back, soft front. And allowing the musculature to rest into the spine, into the skeletal structure. Just allow the breath to come and go. You don't have to make the breath be anything other than what it is. Just let yourself begin from what is simple. And as we enter silence, you might imagine that everything that arises as a garment with the chayut, with the life force underneath it. A thought arises, a garment. A sensation arises, a garment. A feeling arises, a garment. A sound, a garment. And we don't need to tear the garment off or analyze it. Just to remember, this is not the whole thing. There is life underneath. There is chayut underneath. So when something pulls at your attention, you can silently and gently just name it very simply. Thinking, feeling, hearing, sensing, planning, remembering. And then asking inwardly, what is the chayut? What is the life force here? We'll sit together for a few moments of silence. I did it, I did it, I did it, I did it, hello, Sayani. I did it, I did it, I did it, I did it, hello, Sayani. I did it, I did it, I did it, I did it, hello, Sayani. Hi, Ani. Begin again to feel the room around you, the body sitting, the breath moving, the sounds around you, the shared field of practice. And if it's calling to you, you can place a hand on the heart or simply bring awareness there. Whatever has been here with you in this sit today, let it be included. May these days of counting be medicinal days, and may what is hard in us become workable. May what is hidden in us become luminous. May what is covered over begin gently to reveal itself and reveal its inner life. May we not mistake the shell for the essence. And may the words of Torah, the words of practice, the words of the living source enter our hearts in such a way that they return us again and again to the hidden life within all things. May we move through this world as an entrance hall, shimmering with holiness. And may we be blessed to taste our world to come in this lifetime. Hello, Sayani. I did it, I did it, I did it, I did it, hello, Sayani. I did it, I did it, I did it, I did it, hello, Sayani. Sayani. And who is this aliveness I am? And who is this aliveness I am? And who is this aliveness I am? Is it not the Holy Blessed One? I did it, I did it, I did it, I did it, hello, Sayani. I did it, I did it, I did it, I did it, hello, Sayani. Hi, Ani.
Thank you so much, Kerith. Hope everybody you can stay around at the top of the hour for questions and conversation about the teaching and the practice today. If you need to leave us, we wish you shalom and farewell, and you can come back and be with us again. But right now we have an opportunity for those who are remembering loved ones to recite the Mourner's Kaddish together. Thanks to Rachel for putting the text up. If you want to include the name of anyone you're remembering today in the chat, you're welcome to do that. And then you're also welcome to unmute if you like, and you can join me in reciting the Mourner's Kaddish together. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah be'alma divrei chiltei v'yamlich malchutei v'yechon v'yomechon v'chayei b'chol Beit Yisrael Bizman Kariv v'imru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevarach le'alam ule'almei almayim. Yitbarach v'yishtabach pa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. Yitkadar v'yit'ale v'yit'halal. Shmei Likud Shabrich Elam,
Elami,
Kol
Kol
Birchata,
Birchata,
Shirata,
Shirata,
Shbechata, Benechamata, Damiranda
Damiran
Alma
Dialma,
V'imru, Amen.
Amen.
Shlama
Yehi
Rabba Min
Shlama
Shemaya,
Rabba Min
V'chaim
Shemaya,
Yaveinu,
V'chaim
V'al Kol
Yaveinu,
Yisrael,
V'al Kol
V'imru, Amen.
Yisrael, V'imru, Amen.
Shalom Bimrama,
Shalom
V'yaseh
B'Rama,
Shalom Aleinu,
V'yaseh
V'al Kol
Shalom
Yisrael, V'al Kol
Aleinu,
Yoshvei Tevel
V'al Kol
V'imru.
Yisrael, Tedal, V'imru, Amen.
Shalom, Elena Vilko Israel, calling straight. Amen.
Okay, great, thank you. All right. So if you have a question, we always like to encourage you to ask, but if you can put in all caps question before your question, that helps us to see it. It helps it to stand out. If you have a comment, you're welcome to respond or to offer a comment. Just please practice mindful speech, one of the midot we try to practice during the Omer and always, but speaking in the first person about your own experience is great. I think those are the guidelines. Great. And Kerith, I wonder, are you on original sound? I wonder if you're still on original sound. We're picking up a little bit of background noise. So, great. So yes, if you have any questions, please, just all caps question there. And Kerith, I was really, it was a very rich teaching you offered based on the Svat Emet and really looking at the, hold on a second here. Looking at the doubling of Emor el Kohanim ve'amarta aleihem, right? That this double language of speech, which invites interpretation. Why use that verb twice? And you pointed us towards. I heard you pointing us towards thinking about. There's the speech we hear, and then there's the speech that's underneath the speech, right? And where is that coming from? Is it coming from inside? Is it coming from outside? But the act of discernment, I think, is what you were really inviting us into. And and Toby just asked if you have a source sheet for today. There we go. Okay, it's listed. So there's a lot to review. There's a lot to go deeper on. Judy has a question here already about the last part of your ending blessings referred to entering the world to come in this lifetime. So maybe actually that's a good place to start. Could you talk more about the idea of the world to come in this lifetime and entering it?
Yeah. And so a taste of it. May we receive a taste of it. I think that a lot of this teaching of noticing the chayut, of noticing the life force, and not just taking for granted what we see in this world, but really when we're able to notice the divine life force that resides within everything, it really is a beckoning toward revelation and a different way of walking through the world. And I'm not positing that this is something that we can do, on the regular. I live in Los Angeles, Josh, you're in New York City. Like, I would get hit by a car if I walked around and really taking in the depth of the chayut that surrounds me, but taking moments to recognize it is a glimpse of, I think, this idea of a messianic age. That's when we recognize the divinity that really pulses through everything. And there are times when that's easy to do, when we see the beauty in the world around us, when we recognize the beauty of another human being. And there are times when it's really difficult to do. And our practice, I think, points us toward expanding upon the times when it comes naturally to us into places where first where we just might not think to do it, and then even into those difficult places.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting, this is one of the few teachings where the Svathamet doesn't bring in Shabbat, but he could be, because when you say,
Sure.
a taste of the world to come, that's how our
Yeah.
tradition refers to Shabbat, Me'ein Olam Haba.
Sure.
And that Shabbat can be this moment, this time of a kind of it's inhabiting a kind of consciousness, right, that you're
Mm-hmm.
describing.
Yeah.
Being attuned to the inner voice, maybe that's there, that we don't always, during the busyness of the work week. I'm in Chicago, by the way, just
Oh,
not,
sorry.
that's all right. But even in Chicago, and it's certainly in New
Yes.
York,
Yeah.
but even here in the Chicago suburbs, that we're not necessarily attuned, and it's interesting. Like, so the cat just joined me, and I have found this to be like part of my practice with the cat these days. Is she's pretty noisy. She a lot of meowing, a lot of demanding. At least I hear it as demanding. The problem with the cat is that, like, you have to be very, very perceptive to understand the differences in intonation. I mean,
Yes.
dogs you can kind of tell, but like cats are.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like one sound, and if I'm not at my most charitable, I interpret that sound very
Mm.
negatively. And so there's an opportunity to say, all right, what's the voice that's actually like underneath this?
Yeah.
Maybe to thinking of it that way. But I wonder,
Yeah.
and I wonder how you like practice with that, attuning ourselves in that way.
Yeah. I'm very. I live in downtown Los Angeles, like near USC, and I live in a very urban environment. I actually live across the street from. I live between Frat Row and is on one side of me, and on the other side of me is a fire station and a women's lacrosse and soccer stadium. So I live in a very, very noisy space, and I'm also a person who is very sensitive to noise. So I've really had to. When we moved here, had to kind of readjust to all the the actual physical noise around us, and it's been a great opportunity to notice that I can still myself within the physical noise. That it just takes some attention, and then to extend that to the other metaphorically noisy places of our lives. It's interesting, Josh, because you talked about that inner voice. And I think sometimes that inner voice can be a voice of great truth, but sometimes the inner voice can be really noisy and distracting as well. And so, the discernment there, as you said, that discernment practice is can be really helpful of like, when is that inner voice really something that I should be listening to? And when is it just creating distraction and creating noise and sometimes even creating harm?
Yeah. There's someone I see in the comment here, Judy mentioned the teaching about that in every generation there are potential messiahs waiting for us to be ready to receive them, and the maybe the most famous Talmudic version of that is in Sanhedrin, about Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi being told, go find the Mashiach, who's like out at the gates of the city, at the gates of
Mm-hmm.
Rome, and wrapping and unwrapping his bandages, the person you would least look to, maybe the
Yeah.
person you would turn away from. And maybe there's a lot of those people actually. And like, how do you tell which one, And so there's and those voices could reside in our own, as you're saying, there can be, certainly in meditation practice, one of the things we do is try to get quiet enough where those voices can simmer down, right? And we might be able to tune ourselves into something that's more the signal than the noise. Yeah, I'll try, Rachel. I'll put that in here in 1 second.
It's interesting, your comment and Judy's comment. It makes me think also of, yes, we have stories like this pointing to, us to pay attention to who might be the Messiah. And then, we also have the cautionary tale of Shabtai Tzvi, right? Like so it is also about discernment. But I love that you said like, the person who might be the least likely, that's what we should be paying attention to, rather than the thing that's like, hey, I'm the shiny thing, pay attention to me. So I think there's something really beautiful there also about just our practice in general, that those shiny things that are calling for our attention, are making noise, are catching our eye, just to go, not to pretend they're not there or push them away, but see what we can find underneath.
Yeah. Also a really good springtime message too. I was yesterday, I was working in the basement, and I could see the window. It's sort of, we're in a split level, and so you could see the ground, like, my eye level was ground level, and I noticed, and I couldn't tell if it was the wind or if it was something else, but I noticed this leaf sort of like slowly moving. And it was like, was there something underneath that leaf that was like pushing, like a dead leaf that was like, it was being pushed around a little bit? And I was waiting to see, like, was there a caterpillar, or was there something that was sort of moving underneath there? But I feel like this time for those of us, at least in this part of the world, when maybe not where in sunny Southern California where it's always spring, but but where things are, moving and becoming and unfolding, right? And we're seeing, we pay attention to, there's an opportunity to pay attention to what's underneath there. And the chayut, the life force that really is making itself known. Yeah, Carolyn, that chai is the same thing. Chayut is the life force related to chai, exactly. And chaya is an undomesticated animal, wild animal, literally. So yeah, that's right. All similar words.
All connected. Yeah.
Wonderful things about Hebrew. Carolyn mentions that you're going to a retreat. That's fantastic. And there's construction. Okay, another thing that's becoming. It's sometimes also pronounced chiyut. You have different chayut. It's this, but in Hebrew it looks like this. It's there you go. So alternative pronunciations for sure. Thank you, Natasha. An abstract noun. That's the technical weird word we were looking for.
It's always good to have a Duke expert on hand. Thank you, Natasha.
That's right. Fantastic. There was also just one request for the name of the song that you had at the end, which might be familiar to some, but isn't familiar to all. You wanted to share that?
Yeah, it's Halo Chai Ani, and it's by Rabbi David Zeller. And if you enter, it's also on the source sheet, all the words and the name of the song and the composer. And if you enter that into your Google search, I'm sure you'll find a number of recordings of it.
Yeah. Rabbi Jonathan Kliegler loves to sing that on retreats that he leads for us. We often sing that together, and I'm sure that I think there's a recording of him doing that. I'm sure there are others. Okay, Ike, asking the question: what is the difference between this practice and mindfulness meditation practice, which has a Buddhist origin? Kerith, you want to try that?
Yeah, I'm actually really happy to answer this question from my perspective, and I'm sure many people will have very different perspectives on it. But the reason I love this question is that Josh, I don't even know if you know this about me, but when I was growing up, my uncle lived on ashram. And so my very first introduction to meditation as like a 6-year-old was going to visit my uncle on ashram. And then when everyone would go to the meditation hall, I would tag along because I love my uncle and I wanted to hang out with him more. And that was where he was going. So I was introduced to meditation at a very young age, but from in a Hindu setting. And and I loved meditating, and it was like a part of my life, but it lived over here. And then my Judaism lived over here. And I felt like they were completely separate, and had this real longing to bring them together. And it wasn't until I started having a connection, which is many years ago now, but started having a connection with the Institute that I felt almost permission to bring those things together. And the way that it feels authentic to me is that my meditation in Jewish spaces, the ideas that it's based on and the wisdom sources that I utilize to bring us to places of mindfulness and meditative practice come from our tradition. I think there's been a lot written about Jewish people in the 60s and 70s, really searching outside of Judaism and turning toward Eastern traditions to find these deeper teachings, which do reside in our tradition, but in parts of the Jewish world, they were kind of shoved out. And I'll speak, as someone who is very connected to the Reform movement. I'm a faculty member here at the Hebrew Union College, the Reform Seminary in Los Angeles. That Reform Judaism in particular really shunned some of these ideas that they saw as more spiritual, mystical, which was not that people didn't want to embrace. And exactly, the Jew in the Lotus writes about this, and then I also, how to say this succinctly, the Holocaust and the loss of the chain of tradition through many of these Hasidic lineages. And simultaneously, the ossification, what I see as the ossification of a tradition. And that happens in all traditions as they grow, that ossification happens, rigidity can set in. And so I think that this has been there for us for throughout, but our access to it has waxed and waned.
There's a lot more we could say about this. I mean, like this is a question we get, frequently, and I love your answer, Kerith, and both that it's personal and also touches on some of the history. We'll try to come back to it in a future episode. But in the meantime, we're at our time, so I'm gonna honor that and thank you for your teaching, your guidance today. Thanks to Rachel for being our tech, and thanks to everybody for being here as part of our community. And we'll look forward to seeing you again tomorrow or whenever you can join us. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.